Hello, world. This is Talkin Live. We have a special guest here today, and her name is Miranda Gordy, the Badstreet Beauty of professional wrestling. I'd like to thank you for being on the show, Miranda, and I'd like for everybody to know that this lady here she is a wrestler, and her dad was a great guy. His name is Terry Gordy. Actually, I know the guy that worked with me, Harry Thornton, and he was in our area, but I used to watch him, Pretty Boy Floyd. You remember? You probably growed up with those people coming around once in a while around you at your home, or them maybe getting together, the wrestlers together when you was a young kid. What'd you think about stuff like that? And what was the inspiration of you to get into wrestling?
So I grew up with some wrestlers. Obviously I was really young when my dad was still wrestling full time, and so people that like Tommy Wildfire Rich. I have some pictures of him when I was a baby. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. A lot of those old school wrestlers were around when I was a young kid. And just growing up in wrestling was the biggest inspiration for me to get started on my own wrestling career, which this July will be 5 years of matches, actually. So.
Yeah, and did that was a great influence on you to go do wrestling by being around those people, those other wrestlers. That's what motivated you, and you got the idea you wanted to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, when your dad's a famous wrestler or well known and well respected in the wrestling community, and people constantly reach out to you, and you're always doing things for him. I know he's passed, but people still put on like memorial type events or events that show respect to him, and you still do stuff like that. And so living in it, you're submerged in it anyway. So I figured I would just make the best of it and try it out and see if I could do something with it. And I've done a lot. Like I've done a lot in the 5 years that I've been actively wrestling. So it has paid off. But yeah, that's just kind of being born in it was the biggest inspiration.
Do you have any brothers and sisters that?
I sure do. My brother wrestled. His name is Ray Gordy, and he wrestled as Jesse of Jesse and Festus around 2007 to 2010, I believe, or 2009. I do have a sister, but she doesn't wrestle. I have a cousin that wrestled. His name is Richard A. Slinger. He did a lot of stuff in Japan. He was the first American to graduate from the dojo over there. And then I had a great uncle who wrestled, and that's who got my father started in wrestling. So I'm kind of a wrestling family.
Yeah. So, wrestling is a big thing now. A lot of people love wrestling. My dad, he used to love wrestling. You remember Jackie Fargo and all those people like that?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, well, he used to sit and jump around in the seat in his chair while they were wrestling. And, but I'd seen a lot of people wrestling in this area, and they love it in this area. They have wrestling shows a lot of places here. And they do a lot of promotions and stuff like that. I am thinking that you are in Texas, I understand, wrestling now, right? Or you got some kind of show going right now in Texas?
I do. So I'm actually based out of Kansas City, Missouri. But I do a lot of my wrestling in Texas. There's a big promotion, and probably I would call it my home promotion, because I work on the independent scene. So, you work a little bit of everywhere, but one that I think that I've been with the longest and I would call in my home is Texas Style Wrestling, or TSW. It's now located in its permanent home in Forney, Texas, which is just east of Dallas. It's got a real cool center, and it's part of the college that's out there. And so they work together. And I think that's a really good deal because it gives the students time to practice what they do, but it also, gives us a show to put on, and it brings the community together for Forney. So just in that locally, it's a cool show, but they have great production. It has all the best talent you could get in Texas. Myself, Niles Plonk, and Ryan Moonshine Mantell are all in a tag team, a 3-man tag. So, being in Dallas, being in a 3-man tag, it goes along with the freebird history, of course, that people know in Texas. And we're just getting started with stuff with the tag team, and I hope that, I know we're going to do big things with it.
I'm gonna ask you what inspired you to do wrestling?
Like later on in life, as opposed to like just coming up. So my brother did that. My brother got started. He was a wrestler all throughout school. He did like the collegiate style wrestling, and I was into sports. I was never really into wrestling. I feel like with the tragedy of my dad and just watching everything my dad went through, I just didn't think wrestling was for me for a long time. And I don't know, I was getting towards the mid end of my 20s, and it just kind of came to me one day. Like, people message me all the time on Facebook and stuff. They're like, hey, you should do this. You should come out. And, like, I would go to some of it, and I had a really good time. And I don't know, I guess just one time I had enough fun that I decided, I think I'll go to another one and check it out and kind of be a part of it. Instead of just hanging in the back and meeting people, like I want to be a part of it. And it just kind of escalated and snowballed from there. It was in August of 2018. And so after that, like, I kept going to shows, and I asked for like a manager position, and I started training, and then I got into actually like doing matches. I started training in October of 2018, yeah. And I debuted in July of 2019. So,
do you have a unique way of wrestling that others don't?
So,
signature or something like that.
I mean, I try to do a lot of the stuff my dad did, and I do a lot of things that make sense for my size and body type. Like, obviously, I'm bigger, stronger. Some girls are smaller and thinner and do a lot of high flying stuff. I do like power moves. Like, I do a stalling suplex. You don't see those all the time.
What would be the limit of weight can you lift? I mean, you probably work out a lot, and then you lift weights and.
Yeah, I work out a lot, but I don't lift super heavy, so I couldn't tell you my max. I just maxing out all the time, I don't think is really good for you. And so I do a lot of other work, like I do a lot of farm work and stuff. So it's just not, constantly working your body like that. It's going to break down, plus the wrestling. So I just don't do a lot of heavy lifting. I do enough to be safe. I do enough to be able to lift people up and put them down, safely, because we all want to not go to the hospital at the end of the night, and I still got animals to take care of. So I do enough to be able to lift up a body. There's not really like a set limit that I do. So yeah, but I can pick up some pretty big folks and get them up there.
What kind of animals you have on your place? What do you raise on your farm? That's hard. Now, farm work's hard work.
It is. It is hard work.
And cattle,
So I'm on a cattle ranch, but I don't do the cattle part. But I am surrounded by cattle. I have a horse. I have chickens, ducks, geese, rabbits, cats. But I do a lot of like gardening and stuff. So I have like a huge cornfield and a huge like place for pumpkins, and then I have 2 more gardens, and so I do a lot of like vegetables and fruits and stuff.
yeah, I tried that farming one time. I couldn't handle it. Weeds stuck over the garden and everything. So, but you enjoy, what you do, I guess. And it takes, I'd say that takes a lot of stress off of you. Maybe, taking care of horses, enjoying them. And I'm an animal lover, so, parrots, monkeys, and all that kind of stuff. I'm an animal lover, too. So, dogs, cats, And on a farm, I know you got a lot of responsibility. Depends on how many you have, though, But it does move the stress from the wrestling sometimes, don't it? Yeah, and
Yeah, it's nice to come home to animals that, need you, and I I guess as much as you could call farm animals your friends, like, they want to be around you because you have food and stuff. But it's cool to come home and relax with your animals and take care of them, and then like go out to the garden and see food that you're about to eat, and you don't even have to go to the grocery store. Like, it's right there, and you grew it, and so you feel accomplished. So it's definitely like night and day when I travel a lot for wrestling, and I'm in all these places and traveling, and then I can come home to like a little paradise where everything I need is right here.
Yeah,
To have that.
that's basically what I was talking about. Getting away from it all, You do anything else, like have a little business on the side, or you have maybe a hobby you do, like collect.
I do. So I also run a winery and distillery. So it's Windy Wine Company in Osborne, Missouri. I help with the daily operations and the winemaking, as well as the distilling. We do wine and whiskey right now. We're working on rums and other spirits. But we're all around the Kansas City area, and we're actually about to start expanding to the whole state, hopefully. So we have that in the works. So that's what takes up a lot of my time. I stay really busy.
So weather, how's it, the weather? I know you got to have a lot, and grapes and stuff, you got to have a lot of moisture and stuff like that. Water for them. There's not a shortage or anything in Kansas, or
No. And so thankfully, I run a winery, but we don't have the actual vineyards. Like, I just run, like, we make it with locally sourced grapes and fruit and stuff. But I don't have an actual vineyard. So that's one less headache that that we have here. Everything else we grow. We just don't have the actual like grapevines here. So thankfully I don't have to deal with that. But everything else is made here, and it's all actual grapes and fruits that we use, and all the spices and stuff. So it's an agricultural winery. So it's pretty cool. We're on the farm.
Do you have maybe a label you use, like for your wine or anything like that?
Yeah. So Windy Wine Company. Well, let me see. I'm here now. So here is one of it's a Velociraptor Red, which is a dry red. It's got dinosaurs on it.
Yeah.
How fun is that?
Okay. How the more products that comes out with your name on it, or you don't endorse it, or yeah.
So I'm getting ready to bottle my own wine that will have meat on it. It's a cranberry wine called Miranda.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're going to bottle that this week, actually. And so it will be for sale after we label it and stuff. So probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll have it out. But besides that, that's really it.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, and traveling and wrestling. Have you ever got hurt real bad or something doing that?
I have. So in it would be 2022. That's when it was, 2020. So 2 years ago, in December, I was at a show, and during a match, a girl tore my ACL. And so I was out for about 7 months. But that's really the only big injury, which it's a pretty big injury. I couldn't walk for a little bit. Or I couldn't walk well. So that's probably the biggest one, though.
Yeah, as wrestlers, you know how to wrestle saved, but wrestle, right? Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what we train for. You got to train your body to get used to all the things you're doing it. You train to do it safely as well. And you put the work into your body so that hopefully those injuries don't happen. But it does. It happens to everyone. And whether it's an immediate injury or it's something that develops over time and it eventually will take you out of wrestling, like a spine issue that just, keeps getting worse to the point where you have to get the surgery and then you can't wrestle no more, or something that probably sticks with you for the rest, of your life and that's what the people just choose that, that's what they want to do. And that's, what I want to do. Thankfully, I don't do it as much as some people want to, because I'd rather not have that pain and I'd rather focus on other things. But I'm blessed to be able to wrestle as much as I want. But some people, yeah, they're like, it's just the price you pay, when you do it. And that's what they want to do. So
what do you think that draws people to wrestling? What is, the thing that would make people want to watch wrestling? What is the, I'm trying to find a word. What is the thrill? The thrill of that people get out of wrestling. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what draws people to wrestling is something like if it looks unique, if it's kind of one of a kind, and like I think a big thing wrestlers need to be is they need to stand out. They don't need to look like the average person, because who wants to watch, your average guy? Like, you want to see a tough person go against another tough person, then you don't want to see some people fighting on the streets. You want to actually see a show, and so you got to stand out and have a good character and stuff. And I think finding something that people can relate to and get behind is what draws them. And then once they see a good match from you, they're hooked. Like, that's what you got to do. And it leads back to, the biggest challenge is hooking people to follow you.
I have to ask you this, but you ever get hit with a metal chair? The wrestlers sometimes pick up a metal chair and hit the other guy, You ever get hit with a metal chair?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they should be hitting ladies with a metal chair. But, I mean, I remember when I was young how that people get so much into wrestling, they forget they're not the wrestling. But they, in the audience, they get, so much wrapped up and so deep in it. But I guess that's what brings the joy out of wrestling, is letting people see you do these things and and wrestle like that. I guess that's a part of it, right?
Yeah, I think people, of course, people like to be entertained
Yeah.
and they like to take their mind off of their everyday worries. And wrestling is a good way to express that. It's some people would call it an art form, like some people paint, some people want to watch other people fight. It's just like UFC or, kind of like all the other sports. You're seeing this your team or your player versus this team and this player, and it's no different than any of that. That's what it does for people, is it just kind of distracts them for a moment. And it's, if you tell a good enough story with your wrestling, it's like watching a movie. Like you have the good guy versus the bad guy, and that's what the matches kind of boil down to. You have your crowd favorite versus the guy that either the crowd, is kind of neutral about, but they definitely want the hero to win, or it's a bad guy and the people hate him. And so you see, Batman versus Joker, but it's two wrestlers basically. So, just your superheroes versus your villains, and people like that story. And so that's what wrestlers try to do in their wrestling, is tell that story.
Yeah, they don't.
It just keeps people going and gets them, and like you feel all the emotions, like when you're watching a movie or reading the comic or whatever, and people feel it through there. Of course, it's there. You get the energy from the crowd, and you see it live in person, and just something about human nature gets them hyped up, I guess.
Which cities you have the biggest wrestling crowd? What city would you say?
Ooh. I would say Texas. Texans really love their wrestling, and as they should. They have some of the best historic wrestling. So they've grown up on it. That's what they've always known. So it makes sense that Texas probably has the biggest crowds and a lot of the shows. And I wrestle all over Texas for different shows, and hot spots, San Antonio. San Antonio's love wrestling. Dallas, of course, where the Sportatorium was. So Dallas will always be a wrestling town. People love it there. I have a show coming up in Lubbock, and I've been there before. So I don't think there's a lot going on in Lubbock, but there is now, because I'm coming to town. But I've been to a lot of places that have big crowds. I was just in Philadelphia, which, that's a big wrestling town too. There's a lot of wrestlers from Philadelphia. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Georgia's also a good one.
Yeah, Georgia people like wrestling. Also, I was going to ask you too, one makes Texan style wrestling different than any other styles.
Texas style is, I guess, in wrestling, it's a little more like, I'd say it's a little more tough even than any of the other genres of wrestling or territories or whatever you'd call them today. I think that when you think of Texas wrestling, you think about like Freebirds Von Erichs or any of the Sportatorium guys, that were around, Iceman King Parsons and, all those other people that came through that time. And so you think it's a little bit tougher and a little more real, like a Texan. Like when you think Texas, that's what I think of the wrestling. So, but as far as the show, Texas style wrestling, I think what sets it apart is we have a lot of good people that are, backing it and supporting it. As far as the women's roster goes, the person that oversees that is Jazz, which is a well-known women's wrestler from WWE. So she's the one putting storylines together and stuff for the women. It's like, that's a big deal. And we also have Rodney Mack, which is her husband, who's from WWE. We've had a lot of good names. We have some NWA people come in, and so we have a lot of good names and good talent, up and coming people. And I think that is what sets us apart from a lot of the other promotions. Our production is amazing as well. So we just have a lot of people backing it and that know what they're doing.
So you're telling me Texans body slam you? They body slam you worse than all the rest of the
I don't know. They'll body slam you and then put a boot to your face. How about that?
That's what makes it Texas, though.
Yeah.
But you ever come to Chattanooga, Tennessee, Nashville, Atlanta? You ever do any wrestling around that area?
When I can, anytime I can, I try to come to Chattanooga because, that's where I was born. I was raised there in Chattanooga and my family's still there. And I wrestle, sometimes I wrestle for AWF, which is run by Paul Lee. He's just over the line in Ringgold. But that's the Chattanooga area. And I'm in talks with some more people because I'd like to come back out. And then the next time I am out in the Chattanooga area, I'll post it and I'll post the flyer of where I'm going to be. But yeah, I've wrestled all over Tennessee, like East Tennessee for Ricky Morton's School of Morton show, and oh my gosh, somewhere in the hills of Tennessee, and then Chattanooga. I've wrestled out near Nashville. I've done a lot of wrestling in Jackson. I was there for Burt Prentice for a long time in Jackson, Tennessee, and Memphis.
Let me ask you this question. Do you remember living, or your dad living, on Carden Avenue in Rossville, Georgia?
Yeah, like that's probably my granny's house. Yeah.
That was across the street from where I live.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I used to see your dad out there once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, come outside, stuff like that.
They had that house at least until, like 2000, whatever. So.
Yeah, I moved from there a long time after that. But I just thought I'd bring it up to tell you that.
That's awesome.
We appreciate you being on our show.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for having me. You can find me on Facebook under Miranda Gordy, Instagram under Miranda Gordy, Twitter, Miranda Gordy. I'm pretty easy to find. And any of my bookings and all my shows that are coming up, you can find on Facebook. I share them all the posters and stuff.
And we appreciate you being here, and God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. To watch this show again, be sure to visit talkinlive.com. We now have Roku and Amazon Fire TV channels for you to watch from your home TV. Or find more of our recent shows on most any of your favorite social media platforms. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night, world. We will be talking live with you next time. The views and opinions expressed on all Talkin' Live presentations are those of the host and their guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of the Talkin' Live TV broadcast studio, or by this channel or its management.